Baruch Hashem. God is so amazing and wonderful. Okay, about 1:11. Avtalion used to say, "Sages, be careful with your words, lest you incur the penalty of exile, and be carried off to a place of evil waters, and the disciples who follow you drink and die, and thus the name of heaven becomes profaned." Don't be a heretic. I mean, that's like way down the line, though. Abtalion is specifically talking here about sages that aren't heretics, that aren't clear with what they say, because the commentary here says or somewhere it does. Okay, yeah, the Bartanura says Antigonus, the man of Soho, with his students Tzadok and Betos. He said he taught, "Do not be like slaves that serve the master for the sake of receiving the reward." And they misunderstood what he said, and they went off and became heretics and started the Saducean, the Sadducees, and the Boethusians. I learned something from Rabbi Reuben about when it says man, like when it, a lot of times in Pirkei Avot, like when it says Antigonus, man of Soho or Soho, um, it translates the Hebrew word ish as man, but that's not really accurate. Ish is like, Rabbi Reuben teaches that ish is like a leader in whatever area, whatever place the person lived, whatever city. So it's not just like a man. Every Hebrew word is very specific. Like there's already a word for man, that's Adam, but that's kind of general, and how it's used can, like, how or where it's used in what context can vary exactly what they are talking about. But anyway, I wanted to talk about last week's Torah portion specifically. I title this "Every Week There's Proof," but I'm sure that's probably true, but I haven't like checked. But I figure it's probably pretty likely that God put proof in every Torah portion, or at least, specifically that He is the only God, and that everyone that follows anything other than the Torah, of what people call like rabbinical Judaism, the Masort of Am Yisrael. Anyone that follows anything other than that is either an idol worshiper or a heretic or whatever else, an atheist. I mean, really, atheists are just idol worshippers because they worship themselves as God. with a few other idols thrown in. But last week's Parashat Vaetchanan was just like a glaring neon sign for me of like proof that the New Testament is false. There's just all kinds of like I said, neon signs. It starts out with and I besought the Lord at that time, saying, it's from the perspective of Moshe, talking in the first person. I think that's what Vayet Hanan is, and I besought. And he prays and begs God 515 times to let him enter Eretz Israel. And God finally tells him to shut it because it's not good for him. Rabbi Reuben had a really good short shiur last week about the parasha. It's titled, I think it's like Proof Manus Friedman is Not Real Chabad. And it's about, there's just a tidbit in there about Manus Friedman, but it's mostly about the weekly Torah portion, and it's really good. It's only about 30 minutes, and everyone should watch it and pay attention. I mean, everyone should watch way more than just 30 minutes of his shiurim, but if that's all you're willing to put forth the effort for, be good place to start. But God tells Moshe to shut it, stop praying, because if he prays one more time, he'll have to. It doesn't say this in the text, but it's elucidated in the commentary and the other sages. It's like a combination of like a gematria and other things, but sometimes people want stuff and it's just not good for them. But not everyone is as wise or as humble as Moshe and acknowledges what's not good for them. So he just accepted it. It was God's will, and he even though he knew if he prayed one more time, he would have entered the land and got what he wanted, been able to fulfill mitzvot that were only able to be done in Eretz Israel, but it wouldn't be good, so he just shut it, moved on. Oh, it's Vaetchanan is Deuteronomy 3:23 as the start. And so we abode in the valley over against Bet Peor, the house of the idol of dung, basically. That's Deuteronomy 3:29. And it's pretty interesting. There's every time they mention Baal Peor was a really weird idol that had a really weird practice that was just totally ridiculous and disgusting. they would like make food offerings, and then the people would eat the food, and then they would defecate and like, throw their dung at this idol. But the reason why the Israelite men worshipped Baal Peor wasn't because they thought that this idol had any power or was a god. Was because they wanted to be with the Goyot women, non-Jewish women, and wanted to commit forbidden crimes of forbidden relations. It's one of the sources for why the sages say that no one is above, or maybe it's not one of the sources, but it's like it's related. Like no one, they say no one is above forbidden relations, no matter how holy and pious or righteous a person is, because if a person doesn't put themselves in check, they will and constantly build a fence and maintain it to keep a distance from all the filth. They'll do the most ridiculous, stupid, disgusting things just to fulfill their desires. And most of the time, Baal Peor is mentioned. God also mentions that, like, hey, I am the only God. There's no one else. And the real ironic thing is one of the favorite verses of everyone that hates rabbis and the sages and the Masorah of Am Yisrael and the Torah use as as like their sword to try to cut it down. Which really all they do is they just cut off their own arms and legs. Is Deuteronomy 4:2. You shall not add to the word which I command you, neither shall you diminish from it, that you may keep the commandments of the Lord your God, which I command you. And there's probably more ways than what Rashi gives to explain what this means. But he says, like, don't. I think he gives specifically the number 4, like, to place 5 chapters and to fill in, to employ 5 species of fruit and plants of the fulfillment of the command of the lulav, and to place 5 fringes on one's garment for tzitzit. But not too far after that. Let's see if I can get this thing to stay in place. Like right after that, right after you shall not add to the word, is your, in Deuteronomy 4:3, your eyes have seen what the Lord did because of Baal Peor. For all the men that followed Baal Peor, the Lord thy God destroyed them from among you. But you that did cleave of the Lord your God, are alive, every one of you, this day. I forget what the source is, but I think Rabbi Reuben said at least sometimes when the Torah says this day, it means like forever. Especially like in this sense, all those that cleaved of the Lord your God, they're all in Gan Eden and did not die. because it's sin that causes death, not anything else. This last week's parashat is just chock full of so much amazing stuff. Last few all have, really, but I've been so wiped out lately. I haven't had the strength to even take notes, let alone too much talking about anything. Thank God I've managed to get some strength back, or been granted some strength to do stuff. I felt like a totally worthless sack of garbage for the last month, or at least until a couple weeks ago, when I felt like I was crawling around most of the day. I still kind of like that sometimes, where I just have to beg God for the strength to get one more thing done. Oh, and the other part, Deuteronomy 4:11 through I think 13 or so. Or maybe not. You should really read the whole thing, especially with commentary, and like by a real Jew like Rashi, not by some other idol worshiper. And if you really want to know the truth, you gotta beg God for the truth. You have to sacrifice for it, and you have to admit that you absolutely know nothing. You need a lot of help. Because if you don't do all that, you're probably not gonna see it. You're just gonna keep on keeping on going right into hell. That's gonna seem just amazing right up until the point that you get there and they slam the doors and you feel the fire. But Deuteronomy 4:10, the day that you stood before the Lord thy God in Horeb, which is Mount Sinai, when the Lord said to me, gather me the people together, and I will make them hear my words, that they may learn to fear me all the days that they shall live upon the earth, and that they may teach their children. And you came near and stood under the mountain, and the mountain burned with fire to the heart of the heavens, with darkness, clouds, and thick darkness. And the Lord spoke to you out of the midst of the fire. You heard the voice of the words, but saw no form, only a voice. And the Lord commanded me at that time to teach you statutes and judgments, that you might do them in the land into which you go over to possess it. Take therefore good heed to yourselves, for you saw no manner of form on the day that the Lord spoke to you in Horeb out of the midst of the fire, lest you become corrupt and make a carved idol, the similitude of any figure, the likeness of male or female, the likeness of any beast that is on the earth, the likeness of any winged bird that flies in the air, the likeness of anything that creeps on the ground, the likeness of any fish in the waters beneath the earth, unless thou lift up thy eyes to the heavens And when thou seest the sun and the moon and the stars and all the hosts of heaven, thou should be thou should not be misled to worship them and serve them, which the Lord thy God has allotted to all the nations under the whole heaven. And the Rashi commentary on that ends with Deuteronomy 4:19. The Rashi commentary on 4:19 is kind of interesting. Like one, there's two explanations that are passed down that he gives over. One is that it was at least at one point in time it may have been okay for the nations to think that, you know, that the stars had power and to worship them. But the other one is, yeah, that's fine, but only so as, you know, so as to make the nations wicked and so they merit absolute destruction off the face of the earth. So either one is, you know, is not really that great, because either one it's like worshiping the gardener, like Rav Mizrahi says. You know, the king's right there, but you're worshiping his gardener or whatever, or you know, some candle in a window. And the other one is, you know, I'm not sure if it's worse or better. That you're allowed to do it just because to, you know. And the only reason that would be is, like, if you didn't want to see the truth, if you just hated God so much, deep down, you know, not maybe in your head, but like somewhere, you just made up any other excuse of, you know, some paper mache dung beetle to think of as God, so you could, you know, give your conscience an excuse to do whatever you want. Either way, Baal Peor is not great. Not great. And that's really what God's trying to tell us, is that anything other than Him is Baal Peor. And like I mentioned before, all the garbage from heretics and morons that think they know the Torah is totally distorted. God doesn't, or don't know the Torah, but, you know, take bits and pieces completely out of context and don't really toil in it. Just hear like one-liners and use their own philosophical wisdom to think they know what they're talking about and come up with their own concept of what God is or what He wants. Everything in the Torah isn't for God's ego. It's because it's what's good for us. Because we're stupid. We're seriously lost people down here without His Torah. He gave us an instruction manual, and if we don't follow it, we're seriously going to hell. And also kind of living in it. But if, the most ridiculous stuff is like, people that think that all the stuff in the Torah makes God like an angry, jealous God, or I mean, it kind of says that, but it's not jealous in like that he is like a jealous boyfriend or something, or whatever people think. It's more like zealous. He's jealous for vengeance against wicked people. And when the whole concept of when it says to cause his name to be profaned or profanes the name of heaven, it's not like I don't know if God gets insulted, or he certainly doesn't like it because it's not good for us. That's the whole reason. When God's name is desecrated, or when his Torah is desecrated, or when the sages are desecrated, or his representatives, which are rabbis with Yirat Shemayim, when they're when they're when people go against them, then it's bad for us because his name gets desecrated, and then no one listens and follows the Torah, and so it causes less Torah in the world, less light to the world, and less reason for the world to exist. Every day and every week is another chance to see the truth and to do teshuvah. If you really, really want it. I believe in this week's Parashat it also mentions that in the Jews will cast out into exile because they'll worship idols eventually, and the land will vomit them out when they don't keep Torah and mitzvot. And that part only applies to the Jews, but it also says, but if when you're cast out among the nations, if you search for God with all your heart and all your soul, you'll find him. That applies to everyone. But you can't just say some words, or do one act, or one few sentences or whatever, and find God. It says with all your heart and all your soul. That's what it takes. And then never stop, because that's also pretty much what it takes. In some ways, it gets a little easier with the all your. I'm not sure which part, but it gets a little easier in some respects, and in other respects, it kind of stays the same, or gets more challenging. lately I've over the last couple months, like I mean, this year at first it was just keep on trucking and get absolutely as much done, trying to do teshuva and kiruv as possible. And then a really wise and experienced person told me that that's not really the way to go if you want to last. It's a marathon. It's not a sprint. I just have a really hard time like feeling like I have any justification to draw air if I'm not constantly trying to do something every free moment that it's not occupied with, you know, like a minimal amount of physical exercise to maintain some kind of health and eating and sleeping and all the other necessary associated things that go along to like stay healthy and have a functioning body. Every other second is just if it's not working towards teshuva and kiru, I just feel like I have no right to exist whatsoever. If I stop and think about it anyway. So it was really hard not being able to do very much. I just kept begging to God for this strength to just please. That's the whole thing, though. You got to do more with what you have, not ask for more. To do more with. So that's what I would do. Like if I couldn't do what I have been doing, I would just do whatever I could do. And just keep trying, whatever it was. But the Yetzirah is extremely sneaky and versatile. There are so many ways to get a person to not do something good, like something really good, like saving people's souls, including your own, my own. Like it doesn't have to be doesn't just have to be a sin to destroy, or at least keep a person out of the king's treasure room, so to say. Could be anything from like distractions of like noise or being uncomfortable. Like the more that I think about it, there's always something. It's either like too hot or too cold or too loud. At least it seems like most of the time there's always some distraction or annoyance to fight through. And it's not one thing; it's the other. One thing I learned from tax season and Rabbi Reuben Shurim is don't try to don't try to, or don't think you're going to get out of the allotment of suffering that is due, because there's no way for that to happen other than doing a lot of teshuvah. And even then, it's probably not, maybe if you're righteous and you do a bunch of kiruv, maybe you can minimize your suffering. I I doubt that's really possible, because everything has a counter. Like, you do more kiruv, you get more annoyance from the Yetzirah. And you do more teshuvah, and the suffering that you're going to get for being a wicked monster just goes to suffering to clean your soul up here, rather than spending who knows how much thousands or millions of years in Gehinnom. Well, if you try to weasel out of suffering that was going to come slow and steady, that's going to hit you like a brick wall and just go splat. I've been trying to work on this video, short video thing. There's always something. Usually, most of the time, it starts out fairly smooth. Then once the Yetzirah sees that something is going on and there's some kind of progress being made, he starts throwing wrenches into the works. And the video software starts doing all kinds of weird stuff, like moving clips around and shifting things and weird frames, or it'll take like minutes to render something, and some like latency lag issue with rendering the playback. It usually only happens on clips or videos where it's like where there's a really serious timing issue, where like the music has to coincide with a clip, and the like one or two frames is like the difference between it sounding and looking right and it just being absolutely horrible. And so just a little bit of lag makes it just screwed up. So I don't have to. I end up trying to replay it like 5, 10, 20, 100 times, trying to like look and hear where it's going wrong. Slowly, my dumb brain is figuring out that it's pretty stupid to do the same thing over and over and expect different results. Better off just to step away or move on with another part and then come back to it later. Then if it's not that, then then I have absolutely no strength whatsoever to even maintain arm movement or sitting upright. And then when everything else is fine, I just have absolutely no heavenly assistance for like how to make anything work, and my brain just shuts off, and I become like a mentally handicapped person. That's what it feels like. thank God I got some good advice for just stepping away and doing something else when that happens. As in the past, I would usually just try to force it and beat my head against the wall that wasn't there. And it didn't really work out well. That's probably the most effective way for the Yetzirah to really screw with me and mess me up, is to just make things just annoying enough to where I won't I won't stop, but I'll just keep doing the same thing over and over again and become the definition of insanity. The key is to recognize when that is starting to happen and slow down and step back. And if it keeps getting worse, then just stop and go do something else. It drives me nuts though, because it's there's stuff that needs done, please. And I know I asked for to be a little more like a baby. But I guess I really got to watch and pay attention to what I ask, pray for. Maybe not quite so much like a newborn that's learning to crawl, but like a full grown human being, but it just does enough to get all the things a person needs to live. Just the movements and whatever to do stuff. And it's kind of frustrating knowing all this is just a game show. knowing all the food and vitamins and supplements and exercise is just going through the motions. And I mean, the one great thing about food and supplements though is you get to say a blessing, or at least you can. I do. I think I would have stopped taking them completely until I totally broke down and was looking for anything to feel better and get some kind of strength. If it wasn't for saying my own version of the medication blessing, just acknowledging that God's the only doctor, and whatever it is I'm going to put inside my body is just not even anything, just chalk or dust, and has absolutely no functional effect other than whatever God makes it happen. If a person has a real emunah and bitahon in God, they like I say, that blessing on poison. Not that anyone should ever do that, but just in case anyone's in a position or forced to take something that's not really good for them. Try to say something like, acknowledging that, believe it, know it 100% in your heart. Maybe God will turn the poison into medicine. Sometimes I think about that when eating like processed food from the store. So far, I haven't ever said that. I usually just say a blessing for food, though. There's so much to get done. At first, there was just not enough hours in a day. Then there was no assistance to get much done as far as like seeing what to do. And I just didn't have the strength. That and the Yetzirah being an impediment here and there, throw it in the mix. I think it was on day 6 where God said, and he saw, and it was good. Or maybe it was, he was very good. I haven't read Parashat Bereshit. I've only skimmed through the first few chapters, I think, or a couple anyway, 1.5. Whichever verse it is, the sages say that the thing that he saw that was good, either good or very good, I can't remember which one, but the sages say that that's when he created the Yetzirah, and that's what was good. Because people have to have the Yetzirah, or else we wouldn't have desire to eat or to procreate or to do pretty much anything that we need to do to survive and perpetuate people and to exist, both for more than a few days or a generation. That's also good because otherwise we wouldn't earn any reward for our deeds. If there was no resistance, there'd be no reward. Sometimes I think about trying to, not that it's probably likely or something that I could do, but sometimes I think about maybe maybe I could give some of my merits for work away, if it would allow me just to get more done to help more people. If I could, just do like get whatever merits in my own account for whatever would be without it, and then just have the excess go to someone else, just to be able to get more done and feel like doing something. If you hear this, don't wait to do teshuva. Don't wait to learn Torah or to share Torah and to do kiruv. Do it right now. Like as soon as you hear this, go to Rabbi Reuben's YouTube channel or wherever else, and somewhere that has the truth. The only one I can 100% vouch for is Rabbi Reuben and Bezrat Hashem. Like go there and share Torah and never stop. And do whatever you can to just keep doing that and keep making it more effective, and just keep praying to God to see the truth and to help you to earn more merits to do more. Because if you wait forever, you're gonna feel like I do, where you feel like nothing, not even every waking hour you spend just until your head feels like it's like floating in space above your shoulders, and you're numb from pain and stiffness, and you have no energy to do anything. So that's when you stop and pray and then go to sleep, and you'll still not feel like you got enough done. Because the reality is it probably isn't. Like, not for a real honest accounting for how bad I and most people screw up the world. At least from my perspective, anyway. But God sees a lot more than we do. Who knows what who knows what our deeds do? They certainly echo throughout eternity, for good or for evil. There's only so much time a person has to learn all this stuff and to apply it, and to try to rewind the tape of horror that they've been recording their whole life, however long that is. I'm going to get going. It's late and I need to sleep because God says so. Maybe we'll talk more about being able to function on little sleep and little food next time if I can make it that far. God, please help us all. Please help us all to do real tissue. Please grant us all the strength to overpower, to, to outsmart our Yetzirah, and to pass the test you place before us. Please, please help us all, especially your children.